People who have been walked in on during sex. What are your horror stories? I have 2 young kids. My wife and I thought that we had mastered the art of quick and quiet lovemaking. We'll put a movie on for them, go upstairs, lock the door, and get after it. Well, one time we forgot to lock the door. My wife was on top humping away, and I opened my eyes to see my son right next to our bed at eye level with me. He just said, "Daddy, can we have a snack?" He left the room as innocently as he entered, or at least I hope. It's also possible that we scarred him for life. Now we give them snacks first too. If you're ever caught in the act of having the sex, you should keep going. Don't stop. Because if you stop, you just got caught having sex, and that's weird. If you keep going, the person that caught you is weird. BC they saw people having sex and kept watching. I think I was 18 to 19 when it happened. I was at my GF's house watching a movie on her laptop. We had a blanket covering us while cuddling, but we were actually stealthily banging. Suddenly her dad walks in and starts talking to us about dinner or something. We played it cool and stopped for a minute and don't think he noticed. Luckily he just walked back out after he was done talking, but holy shit, that was a close one. Was hanging out with a girl I met at the bar. We'd been drinking and went back to her house. She had told me that she'd been divorced. No big deal. Well, come to find out her roommate was her ex-husband. Whilst giving her oral, he opens the door and politely asks me to move my truck so he can go to the store. Not the most horrific story, but no further sexual escapades were had. Was in my BF's bedroom with the door shut. I thought it was locked. He was playing Metallica kinda loud to drown out any noises we might make. Early 90s. His mom walked in to complain about the music and caught him halfway in the act of taking my virginity. She mumbled an apology and quickly turned and left the room, closing the door behind her. He wanted to continue, but I ended it for the day out of embarrassment. It was very awkward when we emerged from the bedroom a little while later for him to take me home. We completed the act a couple days later when we skipped school while no one was home. We were in HS and my family was moving away. Both being virgins, I had it built up on my head that my BF and I needed some grand Judy Blume-like send-off. Not 30 seconds into the deed, his devout Catholic mom came home early and caught us. He and I hopped apart like we were spring-loaded. While we dressed, she stood there and lectured us about saving it for marriage, yada yada. I walked 3 miles home and moved across the country the next day. Never spoke again. Sorry, Zed. This was back in college. I was dating a woman who I typically saw on the weekends. My roommate, now one of my best friends, was out for whatever reason and my girlfriend was over. So naturally, things happened. Roommate is a socially awkward guy who is sometimes oblivious to even the strongest of hints. So before we got down to it, we put a sock on the door thinking that it should be enough. Roommate comes walking up the stairs. It was a college townhouse living situation. To our room, completely ignored the sock on the door, and walked right in as we scrambled to cover up. He took one look at us and froze in place. Then we screamed for him to go. He ran down the stairs and out of the house literally screaming. Me and my GF, now wife, were in her bedroom, spooning under a blanket. Things got heavy and I slipped it in from behind. Just as I was about to arrive, her mum walks in with a basket of washing. She put her load away and so did I after she left. My GF nearly wet herself laughing. Apparently I have an excellent poker face. A few years ago, my EGF was riding me at the couch right in the middle of her room. Suddenly her brother walks in and looks at us in shock. The problem was that we were fully naked. It was in the middle of the day and there was nothing like a blanket to cover up. Felt like you were presented for the whole world to see. He quickly apologized and left, but that was quite embarrassing. Younger sister walked in just as we were hitting out stride. She was old enough to understand exactly what was going on, but had never actually seen it before. Couldn't keep her mouth shut. Oh my god. Luckily we were able to scramble and get some clothes on before dad came bounding up the stairs. Needless to say I was kicked out immediately and never allowed in that house again. There was a night earlier this year where me and my wife thought our kids were in a dead sleep because we waited a good hour after they went to bed to initiate anything. We start checking the rooms to make sure they were asleep, and they were. So we start going at it, and I'm eating her out, and the oldest son is standing at our doorway staring. My initial reaction was to jump up and head to the bathroom and play it off like I had to get up and use it. All I hear in the background from our 7-year-old is, "Why was daddy's head down by your pee-pee, mommy?" To this day, when it's bedtime, he don't come out of his room. It's bad to the point we've found pee bottles on occasion. I think we might need to start therapy for him. We were at his parents' house engaged in some early morning fun, and his mom walked into the room to grab our laundry because she thought it would be a nice thing to do. We were just visiting. We were being really quiet for obvious reasons, and it was like 5:30 in the morning and she assumed we were sleeping. We weren't under the blankets, so she got an eyeful. She was definitely a lot more mortified than we were, although I was super embarrassed. My boyfriend just kind of laughed it off though. He was unfazed. When I went downstairs for coffee, she just pretended like nothing happened, so I did too. It was never spoken of between any of us, and that's just how I liked it. When I was in high school, my GF and I were messing around. Unbeknownst to us, the door to the room wasn't locked. I had my face buried in her downstairs mix-up, and in walks her dad. All I heard was him yelling something about "you know what they're doing in there," and then 30 minutes later I sat next to him at dinner. Needless to say, I wasn't all that hungry. Girl I dated in HS was a Seventh-day Adventist and therefore hyper-religious, and she lived with her aunt. Her grandma would regularly visit since her aunt had to work weekend a lot. Well, one day I had snuck over while her aunt was at work. We were fooling around in her room when we hear the door open and shut, followed by her grandma's voice booming through the house. Well, in classic style, she shoved me into the closet half naked, slipped her PJs on, and calmly walked into the other room. I silently waited for what seemed like an hour, but was more likely like 2 minutes. She rushes back into her room and pulls me into the living room. Her GMA had stepped back outside to get something from the car. She told me to go out the back, but of all times the fucking door got stuck and her GMA was coming back into the house. Well, essentially she played keep away with her, hiding me behind the kitchen/living room divide until she got a chance to lead me into the garage, where she claimed she had dirty clothes washing. Her grandma seemed to believe her, but I quickly realized I didn't have my keys/wallet or even fucking socks. Just my pants, shirt and jacket. Well, my ex had to go back into her room, quietly gather my things. Unfortunately, she did not realize I forgot my socks too, so I went sockless and stealthily delivered them to me. I heard her grandma asking suspicious questions, but ignored them and went out the side door scot-free, or so I thought. Maybe 20 minutes down the road, my ex texted me simply saying my GMA knew it was you here, cause apparently, even though she is old, she did recognize my car parked only one house down. Had sex with my then girlfriend. During the act, I felt something strange on my ballsack while I was on top of her. The room was relatively dark, so I didn't see something. I thought it's her, that she is grabbing it, but then I realized that both her hands were on my arms, so something was doing something with my sack. And before I could even ask her anything, I heard a loud "woooow." Her dog entered the room and licked parts of my body that shouldn't be licked by a dog. My first boyfriend in high school. It was a half day of school, so we went home to bump uglies. We were horny teenagers that figured out how parts fit together. We barely made it in the front door before we got buck naked on the floor. It was very loud. We had already memorized our favorite positions in a pocket, Kama Sutra. We probably looked like we were porn stars on set. My mother had also come home early. We didn't hear the car or the door unlock or her standing there in complete shock. She was trying to get our attention, and it wasn't until we were about to change positions that we saw her. She told us to get dressed and that she needed to talk to both of us. She sat us down and very calmly asked us about our birth control. She told me she would make an appointment at the doctor to get me started on the pill. She gave us both hugs and "I love you, but you need to keep this in your bedroom." She then explained that it's disrespectful to the people you live with to put them in a situation like this as well. I think we went out to eat together afterwards or something, I don't really remember. This first boyfriend lasted through the better part of high school and we are still distant friends. My mother looks at him like a son she never had. He still remembers her to tell her happy Mother's Day every year and her birthday. TLDR, it started horrible, but ended up pretty good. I have two stories. Due to some fallbacks in our respective employment and careers, my ex-wife and I had to move back into my parents' house. It was a large house, so it wasn't that much of a hassle. The first time involved a friend of mine coming over to go see a film at the theater. My ex-wife was going out with her friends, so we were both getting ready in my room. She decided, while I was getting dressed, would be a great time for a BJ. I'm not going to complain, stop her, so I'm sitting in the end of the bed, and she is going to town. Unannounced to us, my friend had shown up, and was let into the house by my younger sister who was home. He heads upstairs, does the rude short knock and immediately open the door. My ex dives to the floor and I try to pull up my pants and cover the best I can. He for sure knows what was happening and says, hey, we have to get going, the film is starting soon. He closes the door and we both finish getting dressed. I walk her downstairs and give her a kiss goodbye as she leaves to go out with her friends. I head back up to my room and my buddy is in there sniffing like he smells something. He turns to me and says it smells like an interrupted blowjob in here. The next was along the same lines, still in my room in my parents' house. It was a Saturday morning. We woke up and decided morning sex was a great idea. My parents had decided to make breakfast for everyone that morning and we are spooning with her in front, me holding her top leg up for the right angel to get in. She is facing the door. Then my dad doesn't even knock, just opens the door, says breakfast is ready, come down and eat. He pretty much got a full frontal of my eggs with me inside her from the back as she rapidly tried to pull the blankets up. He didn't even fully close the door as he left. TL. Doctor, if you move back in with your parents as a married adult, install a lock on your bedroom door. After a drunken night at the bars, I was fucking this girl in my friend's basement on the couch when his dad, who is good friends with my parents, walked down the stairs. I made eye contact with him right as I thrusted into her. He looked so freaked out and said, sorry, I didn't know anyone was down here, and then turned and walked right back up. We sat there for like 20 minutes too afraid to go upstairs to be able to leave until we finally just sucked it up. He was sitting on the couch in the living room as we were leaving, and we said goodbye really fast and booked it out there. I think he was kinda pissed that we did that, since it's pretty disrespectful, but he never really said anything. He did make a joke once about seeing my bare ass thrusting away, lol. Good times. I only once ever brought a girl home for sex. Normally we opted for her place because my parents have no concept of knocking or privacy. However, this night we were slightly drunk, so mistakes were made. I brought her home to me. We weren't quiet while going upstairs. I forgot to lock my door, and I left my RGB LED lights on shuffle instead of the red I was going for. Also, my bed is opposite the door, so you have no time to react when it opens. Come her being on top and probably too loud, my dad decides he needs to ask me something at 2 AM in the night. So he charges into my room while the LEDs were at a bright white color. We only noticed someone leaving my room. AMD found out it was my dad the next day due to him calling her by her real name and not the nickname he gave her. For more funny Askreddit stories, please subscribe and like the video.